Alrighty, well, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of One Plus One, your place for inconvenient truth telling and myth busting. This is our last show of the season, last show of the year, and who better to close us off than having my favorite person, Yves Engler. Yves, as everybody knows, is a Canadian historian and geocritic, media critic, anti-imperialist thinker, and full-time anti-imperialist activist, the author of several books, The Black Book of Canadian Foreign Policy, Canada and Africa, 300 Years of Aid and Exploitation, Canada and Israel, Building Apartheid, and so much more. And his latest, of course, is Stand on Guard from Whom? A People's History of a People's History of the Canadian Military. And I completely forgot your latest book is with Owen Schock. Yves, remind us what that book is.
Canada's long fight against democracy.
Fantastic. And yes, let's get underway because we are very strict for time. So first off, Yves, thank you so much for coming, especially at the complete last minute. So
Thanks for having me.
always a pleasure to have you. So Yves, wanted to have you on because big political earthquakes is going on in Canada. Chrystia Freeland, or as her ex-colleagues used to call her, Hysteria Freeland, has resigned. Resigned from her wonderful job for her, awful job if you're the average Canadian Joe and Jane and non-binary. She has resigned from being deputy prime minister, big economic minister, whatever her job was. So that's my first question. What the hell is going on in Canada? Why do you think Freeland did this? Is this her throwing down the gauntlet and trying to challenge Trudeau to a leadership bid? So yeah, I'm curious your first thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a sinking ship, and she decided to get off the sinking ship. And this is her positioning herself as the sort of more, call it fiscally conservative, call it right wing, liberal leadership candidate.
Okay, and what do you think is her legacy then? What do you think actually? Now she's not resigned as an MP. She still is an MP for her riding, but uh, yeah, I think yeah. What do you think is her legacy though? Under Trudeau, the sinking ship, as you mentioned, as she herself has been a part of for so long. I mean, huge. I mean, huge position. So what do you think is her legacy then when it comes to yeah? What do you think is her legacy
Well,
on
I
the
mean, her
domestic
legacy,
front?
I wouldn't call myself an expert on her legacy across the board. What I have followed closely is her foreign policy legacy, and I mean, when she was appointed foreign affairs minister, replacing Stéphane Dion, who I think represented a slightly less militaristic and imperialistic faction of the Liberal Party and the ruling class. When she was appointed, the U.S. Embassy sent a cable to State Department saying that Canada adopts a America First foreign policy. Trump, of course, had just been his first mandate. And she tried to probably the most high profile issue was the Venezuela coup and making Canada right at the center, the leading force really in many ways of trying to overthrow Nicolas Maduro. She backed the coup in Bolivia in 2019. She went to Israel in 2018 and said Canada would act as an asset for Israel on the Security Council, where Canada was seeking a seat on the Security Council at that time. Obviously, the foreign policy issue that gets the most attention is that she is a very hawkish anti-Russia individual. This goes back. This isn't post February 2022. This goes back to her late teens in the 1980s when she was promoting the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And so she's been a central player in the whole G7 effort to take Russian assets, 300 billion Russian assets, and then the recent moves towards giving parts of those assets to Ukraine from a Russian perspective, of course, stealing those assets. Um, and so she's been a real hawk on the NATO proxy war. And there's a whole history that people probably know of her grandfather being a Nazi propagandist during World War II and the like. I would say that it would be a fair assessment to call Chrystia Freeland a neocon, somebody who is
Neocon on the foreign policy
on
front.
the foreign policy front. I think that she's like let's call her kind of a pro-corporate liberal politician, but not, nothing particularly extreme. She's got a little bit of liberal feminism. That there's some things, the childcare and stuff like that. That I don't think that the liberals have been particularly uh, odious in their neoliberal policies over the past 10 years. I mean, they are, a party of Bay Street, and they are a party of power and all the inequalities that are within Canadian society. But I don't think that it's been, particularly savage. I mean, I think you can make a good case that someone like Paul Martin, former Liberal finance minister, was more of a, sort of neoliberal cut and slash. She's, of course,
Interesting. Okay, interesting.
of course, overseen a fairly substantive, in the last couple of years, a fairly substantive increase in military spending. Freeland has as finance minister. And I think that's part. And she's a hawk. I mean, you can go across the board, like even on the China file on Meng Wanzhou. She positioned herself in support of that whole pro-US detention that just created conflict with China that was really totally unnecessary, basically imposed by Washington. Um, you go like Haiti. I mean, issues that get completely ignored, like Canada's role in Haiti. She obviously continued Canada's uh, support for the core group, and there was a whole kerfuffle at one point where there was these CBC did a report on the Canadians, part of the UN mission in Haiti, who had been engaged in sexual abuse. Um, um, and Friedland at the time, when she was foreign minister, said we were gonna, because she had this whole feminist foreign policy. That was one of her, there's two elements to her rhetoric on foreign policy was international rules based order, and then a feminist. That was a principal kind of foreign policy justification, and then the a feminist international policy. And Freeland said there was going to be a big investigation of these Canadians accused of sexual abuse in Haiti, and then nothing happened, of course. And because there's legislation makes it so you can't hold them accountable in Canada, and said she was going to investigate that and change the law, which once the media passed over it, she just ignores it. Yeah, I think Freeland is obviously a intelligent manager of Western centered empire, global affairs, U.S. empire, whatever you want to call that exactly. And there's lots of examples of her pursuing that, and she's directly supported the genocide over the past 14 months in Gaza. Anyone who had any, sort of pretense that this international rules-based order business was serious, I think that last 14 months in Gaza has put all that to rest.
Very quick follow-up question. I said to myself, Youri, do not do follow-up questions because because we're very strict for time. But I have to ask this very quick follow-up question. You surprised at how at it seems there's almost like a shocking indifference when Chrystia Freeland, Melanie Joly, Justin Trudeau, or Trudeau as I call him, and the others in his government. Are you shocked at when they are confronted by Palestine justice voices, or even just the average Joe and Jane and non-binary who is shocked at Canada's endless slavish support of just endless weaponry to Israel, and their indifference to the suffering of Palestinians? Are you shocked at how, when folks do confront Chrystia Freeland or anybody in that government, at just how just nonchalant they are about keeping on supporting Israel? Because and I know you've confronted
Oh,
all of them,
yeah.
including Stephen Galbeau, and there's just like this laser robotic normalization of the unthinkable on a massive scale when it comes to the suffering of Palestinians.
Yeah, I tried to ask Freeland back in April about the 14,000. At that point, it was 14,000 confirmed Palestinian children killed, and she just, of course, ignored me, um, and her people basically blocked me. And that's I'm not shocked at the reaction of these politicians anymore. I think that uh, they, when I and others try to confront him, this is just a PR strategy. What I am shocked about is that and let's be honest, when I put a camera in front of these people, these politicians' faces, this isn't really designed for like an actual discussion or whatever. This is, from my side, it is more of a PR political pressure kind of dynamic, anyways. So they're sort of not um wrong to respond in a PR kind of way. I think that Guilbeault has made some errors. I mean, they want to have Guilbeault where he walks, he leaves he tries to get out. Basically, they think I've left, and then he tries to sneak out the venue, and then I happen to just like get him in the perfect spot, and he does this whole tour, and he goes back into the venue. That's actually really dumb PR on his part. He'd be better off to try to like navigate some stuff. Anyways, they've taken this position of just quietness. So that's a PR strategy. What is more I think stunning is the threshold at what Israel is doing and done, and the fact that the Canadian government just continues to support it all. That's what's stunning here. It's not the PR strategy. It's that we have a situation where Israel has unleashed horrors beyond imagination in Gaza. That's just this recent Guardian story from the NGO report about 96% of children thinking in Gaza thinking they're on the about to be killed, and 49% wanting to die. I mean, these are just numbers that are off the charts. And the Air Wars did a recent report just on the October, the attacks, Israeli attacks in October, more than 5,000 civilians killed, and they go into some of the details. So, there's just so many different reports coming at the issue from different angles. It's a horror, it's a Holocaust beyond, like it's just beyond belief. Now, that's happened, and then simultaneously, of course, everything they did in Lebanon, and then over the past, week or so, more than 800 Israeli airstrikes across Syria. So, Israel uses this moment to basically just destroy all Syrian military infrastructure. Obviously, also they've occupied more Syrian territory, and this just all passes with nothing. I mean, this is like the Canadian government just doesn't say anything. They continue the relationship as normal. This is to see this play out 14 months in to this level of just naked aggression, naked might makes right violence is really remarkable. That understood that the Liberal government and the Canadian government and Canadian political culture was decidedly pro-Israel and pro-Zionist and pro-Jewish supremacist and anti-Palestinian. That was all very clear to me going back 14 months. I wouldn't have believed, and also it's also important to note that there has been a genuinely a popular uprising. There has been lots and lots of protests, and opinion within the Liberal Party even is really divided on this issue. Most Liberal Party supporters have a certain degree of sympathy for Palestinians. So this is the Liberals' continuation of this pro-Israel outlook is based upon a whole series of I would say power-oriented calculations, not necessarily even opinion within the broader Canadian public, or for that matter, the Liberal Party. So to see how kind of strong the power structure in the country has been in maintaining its pro-Israel disposition despite the level of horrors beyond belief is pretty remarkable.
And actually very quickly, your response to, I think, the worst when it comes to media reporting on all things Israel, just extreme and just extreme anti-Palestinianism and just extreme junk journalism, junk history when it comes to reporting all things Israel. The National Post and Post Media.
Yeah, I mean they should be tried. This clear the leadership of the National Post should be tried for their role in the Holocaust.
It's yeah, because it is unbelievable the stuff that the National Post says. I know that they're a right wing newspaper, and dare I even say far right newspaper, but it is unbelievable just the level of assholism, the level of normalizing the unthinkable, and the level of just evilism they like promote when it comes to Israel, from saying things like Israel is a model for indigenous people, and that folks should just ignore the international criminal court's ruling on Israel, to them constantly attacking the Liberal Party from the right to say that the Liberal Party is too soft on Palestinianism. One last response you want to give to that?
No, I mean it's remarkable. It does, you do have to ask yourself like to what extent this is all conscious, right? Because as the the massacres increase, or as there's horrors Israel's committing, the reaction of the National Post is to basically cover for it, and you wonder to yourself like how conscious is this? At a macro level there it's obviously conscious and just happenstance, but like at a kind of bit more of a micro level, the editor is like, okay, I just heard about this, like some horror that Israel's committed in Gaza. Okay, now we've got to go with the front page about how horrible it is for Jewish people in Toronto, right? Like, you do ask yourself like how conscious is their enabling of Israel's Holocaust.
And your thoughts on and this sort of goes back to Chrystia Freeland. Your thoughts on the slander case against the Globe and Mail being dismissed by this former liberal MP who was accused of sort of being a Chinese spy. He himself is of a Chinese background. Will we see more of these kinds of bullshit accusations when the deep state and the Globe and Mail, its favorite tabloid, wants to undermine efforts for détente and target people they believe as being, for not being hostile enough to whatever said enemy of Canada, example given, China.
Are you referring to Han Dong and the Globe and
Yeah,
Mail?
yeah.
But I don't believe there. I'm not familiar with the Globe and Mail thing. He had a suit against Global News, is my understanding, not the Globe and Mail.
Oh, okay, okay,
Is
that's
that is that
possible.
is
That's
that what
possible.
Yeah, he was accused, of course, of being of working to keep the two Michaels detained in Chinese prison, who of course China detained in response to Canada detaining Meng Wanzhou. one. So and but my understanding is that the case hasn't been dismissed here. My understanding is they allowed the initial judgment actually allows it to move forward. The global tried to dismiss it as a what a slap suit, and and it was allowed to move to the next stage. I'm not sure if that's the details. I mean, at the a kind of more macro level of the Globe and Mail, I would say that the Globe and Mail it's actually diminished in the past maybe year or so. But the Globe and Mail, of course, has been was just on a for about a 2 or 3 year period. They were on a wild campaign to turn everything, China's the danger of everything and the like. They've calmed down a little bit with that over the past year or so. Um, but they clearly, this again gets back to how, how does this work with the media outlets and the level of consciousness? From a if you were to frame it from a completely kind of conspiratorial standpoint, there was like literally a memo that went from I don't know, the CIA to some maybe to the Thompson family, the owners of the Globe Mail, to the head of the paper, the publisher of the paper, to got to ramp up this anti-China stuff because we were moving towards war with China and contain China policy. I don't think that that's actually how it plays out in practice, but it felt that way where there was just this like remarkable turn of just again everything to do with China is bad front page. It was almost like every single day it seemed like there was some like bad China piece on the front page of the paper. But yeah.
But does that but now if hypothetically Chrystia Freeland challenges Justin Trudeau to a leadership bid, or the Liberal Party even forces Justin Trudeau to have a kind of an open primary where different members of the Liberal Party. Uh,
She wouldn't. She wouldn't. Very unlikely she would be challenging Trudeau. What would happen is that Trudeau would step down or be ousted as leader of the party, and she would be running to replace him and competing against Mark Carney would be one person, maybe Melanie Joly. There's a few other François Philippe Champagne. Those are some of the people that are talked about.
Now, how frightened should we be if she was to get the party nomination and she runs against Polyev, because she, as you mentioned, is rabidly anti-Russia, is very much part of that faction of the Liberal Party that wants to do more NATO and more interventions in the world. And very much would like to see a confrontation with China. So how frightened should we be of her and that faction of the Liberal Party winning?
My sense is it would be a little bit worse. I don't know that it would like, like you can get I mean, Trudeau's pretty bad. Melanie Joly is pretty bad. François Champagne is pretty bad. Like the differences here are kind of around the edges, and obviously Polyev is pretty bad. I would prefer Chrystia Freeland to Polyev as a leader,
Interesting.
as the prime minister. But yeah, so I don't know that like should we be frightened? Yes, we should be frightened by the Liberal Party winning, Conservative Party winning, and maybe even the NDP winning. So,
So in other words, we have to. So in other words, people power folks, but especially those of the anti-imperialist movement and the truth-telling movement and the myth-busting movement, which you're a part of. Just it doesn't matter. Just keep soldiering on and pushing back against
yeah,
them.
I wouldn't say it doesn't matter. That's not how I wouldn't say I think it does matter, but I just to say that like they're operating within power structures that individual characters don't play that big a role. I mean, did Canadian foreign policy change that much from Stephen Harper to Justin Trudeau? I mean, there is some differences, but the overarching story is one of continuation, and it has more to do with changes in the world than necessarily different either opinions. I don't know that Trudeau has like I don't think he has much like opinion. What I would say is that um, Freeland would be more ideological on these international issues than Trudeau would be my guess. And then than Joly or François Philippe Champagne. François Philippe Champagne is viewed as a sort of like I think the kind of more like pro corporate. He's very into doing events with the different business lobbies and announcing different kind of business ventures and stuff like that. So he would be viewed as the more kind of pro-capitalist or even more pro-capitalist element. But I don't think when it comes to international affairs, I don't believe that he's that he doesn't really, I mean, he obviously goes along with the US empire. He goes along with the, you know, Canadian global corporate class and their international interests. But I don't think it's as much kind of it's an ideological as Freeland is, where I do believe that Freeland, has uh, kind of, she's she is a neocon to an extent.
And I got three. Yeah, I got three to four. Well, anyways, I got three questions left for you, and I'll try to combine these two. Syria, that uh, a huge victory for the evil empires was the defeat of the sovereign state of Syria, the Syrian Arab Republic, led by the Ba'athist Party. Do you think the anti-imperialist movement and more broadly the left failed Syria? And how do we go forward in doubling our efforts to avoid further victories of the evil empire?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that the left failed Syria, failed Palestinians via Syria, failed challenging the empire. And that's not like I also think that it's a father to son dictatorship, and I think that hits a police state, and there was theft, and there's all this kind of stuff. But I think that the principal thing is holding our governments accountable, and in this case, this was undoubtedly this massive, uh, call it a dirty war, call it a destabilization, call it a foreign
All
intervention,
of the above, in my
right?
opinion.
Yeah, so there was a huge amount of resources, a huge amount of diplomatic efforts, a huge amount of that were pumped in to oust, to destroy a government, not because it had prisons that it tortured people in, but because it was viewed as not aligned with the U.S. Israel domination of the region. I mean, I think that that's the center. There's the Saudi monarchy, and Qatar had their own interests. There's a Shia Sunni split. There's obviously Turkey has its neo-Ottoman aims, and it's also a member of NATO. And anyway, so there's lots of different factors going into the whole mix. But I think that it's pretty clear to me that the left in Canada's um, principal kind of position on this should have been, well, is it our government's responsibility or to organize these quote unquote friends of Syria initiatives to oust Assad? Is it our responsibility to be putting money into uh, propaganda for the rebels or the Al Qaeda types or whatever you want to call them?
Non-existent moderate rebels.
Yeah, so that I think is what you come out of with the Syria issue is it's an issue that I've seen more and more clearly, what you've seen kind of play out with Palestine over the past 14 months, is that there has been a certain degree of consciousness around Palestine, but it's geopolitics is just completely dominated by Washington Zionist perspective, right? Like so you isolate it in that, okay, Israel shouldn't just be killing endlessly in Gaza, and we've kind of built up a movement that's, you know, fairly substantive behind that notion. But then when it comes into getting into a geopolitical discussion, and you then it's just all collapses, right? And when it comes to sort of like Iran, right? You know, like eh, we've seen this play out with Iran in recent months, and efforts to, you know, dubbed the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a terrorist organization, and stuff like that. Like, well, I mean, the IRGC has combated terror in Syria. I mean, they've combated Al Qaeda in Syria. They
Oh,
have,
but also to call a faction of the army a terrorist organization. I mean, the Canadian Secret Service, I would call that a terrorist organization. The Canadian military, I think, is a state terrorist organization, and they're kindred spirits of the Five Eyes Alliance, NATO, and whatnot.
yeah. So, but the broader point here is that geopolitics is just, you know, it's just so dominated by Washington and Israel, and so the left basically is incapable of responding in almost kind of any way to the geopolitical discussions. There's, you know, some, like a, you know, a question like Venezuela, like with time there, you know, there's a certain degree of kind of like, you know, okay, they're trying to crush Venezuela because it's pursued a independent, you know, sort of socialistic policy. And so there's some areas, but when it gets into sort of like, okay, there is this, you know, there is this geopolitical game going on. We can pretend it doesn't exist. Like, I get it. There's a whole kind of anarchist faction that wants to just pretend it doesn't exist, and I have a certain degree of sympathy for some of that, right? Because I do think there are, you know, I don't think that the other block is just like benign or benevolent. I think these are global power structures, but we have to understand that it is the U.S. That is the overarching power in the world, and we need to, you know, it's not just that the other hub of power is all benevolent or benign, but it's just that power imbalance in and of itself that is the issue, central issue, and then even more so when it's our government and our, you know, political culture that is part of that power source. So I don't know, you know, yeah. So I think yes would be the answer.
Final question, because you have to go soon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so final question is this. How do we go forward in the anti-imperialist movement when Syria, a country that deserved our unconditional solidarity, has fallen to Western Gulf Turkish Israeli imperialism? Because sadly, I've lost count of the amount of supposedly anti-war, anti-imperialist organizations, individual folks involved in the Palestine solidarity movement and also leading Palestine solidarity movements who have cheered on the demise of the Syrian Arab Republic, but then make stupid statements about how they're concerned about Western imperialism and they're concerned about Israel and so forth. And I don't have to, you know, explain to you how
Yeah.
corrupt Al
Yeah, I don't
Jazeera, Middle East
think.
Eye, and Middle East Monitor are in influencing that, and sort of the skeletons in the closet of Sunni supremacy or Sunni victimhood that some folks in the Middle East diaspora and the Palestine diaspora have. But how do we go forward though with it? Yeah, but how does the anti-imperialist movement as a whole go forward with with that kind of
Yeah,
elephant
I
in
mean,
the living room?
I think there's all kinds of things that can play out. Like, I don't think what's happened in Syria, we don't know. This could, I mean, I think to frame it in the most positive possible scenario, this could lead to a whole upsurge of sort of like, let's get rid of our regimes that leads to Jordan and Egypt. You know, that's a possibility, right? I know there's even some, you know, concern about that. Even in the Palestinian Authority, there was concern that the Palestinian Authority is concerned that they're going to get destabilized, which I think would be a very good thing, you know, in this context. Social relations and global affairs play themselves out in all kinds of different ways that I don't think anyone, you know, fully understands where things are necessarily going, or you know, what can happen. But I think the most important point for those of us certainly in Canada or coming from is to center challenging Canada's foreign policy, right? And to center that Canada's, respecting international law and can right and that Canada is not a benevolent force. In fact, it's a malevolent force in global affairs. And so
Yeah.
that has to be front and center in how we keep going and how we assess these things. And then again, it's not like, to some extent, I would like to stay out of is Assad good or bad kind of
Yeah.
discussion, right? And get into, and I think those discussions need to happen, and the extent to which we engage in an issue should be somewhat connected to how good or bad that government that's being destabilized is, right? So, like, in the case of Haiti, in 2004, part of my motivation for engaging wasn't just that Canada was being imperialistic. That was very clearly being imperialistic, but also that it was a pro-poor government. It was a government. It wasn't just like a government that was offside with Washington, but it was a government that was genuinely trying, very, very limited way, but trying to, like, end this just stunning misery that much of the population, most of the population, lived in. So we should have those discussions as well. But when it comes to political action, I think we need to be very much kind of focused on the Canada angle. Unfortunately, I do have to go
All
right away.
righty. Exactly.
Okay.
Well, Yves, first of all, thanks so much for coming on the program, and we look forward to future discussions with Yves in the future. And I just want to say to folks, it is our last show of the season, so I just wanted to wish a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah to folks. And despite and I think to sort of lift our spirits up, we should all be celebrating we don't know. We should not be celebrating, but we should all be, playing John Lennon's song, "Merry," "Happy Christmas." The war is over, and I just want to thank and again. Oh, and also, folks. Yes, I'm going to be taking a Christmas break off, and I'm going to be taking some time off in January. So do donate. So subscribe to One Plus One. Do donate generously to One Plus One at our PayPal. And when it comes to Yves Engler, subscribe to Yves Engler at www.yvesengler.com. And then you'll also get notifications when Yves does his Canadian Foreign Policy Hours show, where you can watch Yves live stream on Zoom and get to ask questions afterwards. And yes, and it's been incredible year. So just want to thank all of the guests who have come on the program, all the fans of One Plus One, and all of my comrades in the indie journalism world and activism world for telling me to keep going on. And yes, and so yeah. Merry Christmas, folks. Have a very good holidays. Have a very happy Hanukkah, and whatever holiday you celebrate. May you enjoy that with your family and friends. Keep fighting the good fight, despite the state of affairs. Keep fighting the good fight, and because we can't just let the evildoers win. So we have to. So we gotta be angry, but continue to fight on. And until then, yeah. Good night and good luck. Ciao, folks.